Hi, my name is Mike Ramos. I'm the Executive Vice President here at Raymond Engineering, and I'm very excited to be speaking with you today because I want to share a little bit about our experience as a small business and some of the ways that we've taken an innovation mindset and rapid prototyping approaches to do our core competencies, which in our case is architecture and engineering. And we've been working with the Corps of Engineers for a number of years, and that does mean that we get pulled into a lot of facility condition assessments. And for Department of Defense and even for a lot of organizations within the larger federal government, that inherently means you're working with the SMS-Builder. And so what we're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so talking about is how we took an innovation approach and we're able to, as a small business, bring to market new creative software that solves a lot of our small business challenges and how they can be deployed pretty much for any type of project. So a little bit about myself. Again, I mentioned I'm Mike Ramos. I'm the Executive Vice President here at Raymond. If you're not familiar with Raymond, we were actually started in 1992. We are a family-owned and minority 8A and service-disabled veteran-owned small business. We originally started in roof design and waterproofing design consulting, and that's still a tremendous amount of our business. It is going to come up later in this presentation, but nowadays we do a lot of federal work, including for the Corps of Engineers with Naval Facilities Command, Air Force Civil Engineering Center, and we get pulled into roof consulting, we get pulled into full architecture engineering, and along with that goes a lot of facility condition assessments. And that's where my background has been actually very, very helpful. And so previously, prior to joining Raymond as our EVP, I was a director of analysis with management consulting. Spent a lot of time in the DC National Capital Region. I was a senior associate at Booz Allen Hamilton, and actually started my career as a nanotechnology engineer with Northrop Grumman. So my previous federal experience and consulting experience has been very helpful because I've been able to leverage software development techniques to solve non-traditionally oriented software problems. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how we can actually innovate in in areas that are usually not associated with software or not welcoming the software, and how it can solve really relatively straightforward problems. So I'm going to jump right into it. And so I've mentioned a little bit, Army Corps of Engineers has this vast mission. So inside of the Department of Defense, tremendous amount of portfolio, real property management challenges. And if you just look at the numbers and across all the major branches, just a tremendous amount of property, buildings, real estate that has to not only be accounted for, but also has to be maintained over time. You hear about this in congressional budget exercises all the time. And basically, at the end of the day, in order to manage it, you've got to have a program and platform to do it. We're talking about $1 trillion easily in buildings, almost 600,000 buildings just under DOD. Acres and acres, millions of acres of land. And so that's where, if you're not familiar, large businesses get called in, small businesses get called in, and there's an ongoing requirement to understand this current state of the DoD facility portfolio and whether it needs to be replaced, modernized, sustained, repaired, and making sure we have a good understanding of where things are. And so in order to do that, what the Corps of Engineers has actually done is engage the Civil Engineering Research Laboratory, CERL, in building the Builder platform. It makes a tremendous amount of sense. A huge amount of effort has gone into this. They've taken a very, very scientific approach in order, how do you measure these things? How do you get the data in? How do you actually analyze, plan, manage a portfolio, a real property portfolio on a scale that very few organizations actually have to deal with? Is really DoD, GSA, places like that. And so that's all well and good. There's a tremendous amount of work that's necessary to be done. Software has been built, and the federal government, numerous agencies have all come together to say, this is how we can collect the data, understand the data, analyze, and actually plan, so that we can actually have an effective portfolio. And so what you typically find on any condition assessment is there are manuals for this. The Builder program is there collecting all of the data, and generally speaking, it's been working, all right? But there are some catches. So moving into it, what we typically find is in contracting, a couple of good things happen. One, this is a huge amount of work that needs to be done. And so on the good side, what we typically find organizations like Corps of Engineers are employing almost an army of contractors and personnel in order to deploy to all the facilities, do the work that needs to be done, and make sure it's done in a timely manner and the most cost-efficient way possible. A lot of cases, large businesses get pulled in to do this, but at the same time, small businesses very much get pulled in. Raymond does a lot of this work both in roofing, which I'm going to talk specifically about, but also in full condition assessments at this point. And small businesses can be very ideal because, if nothing else, people like Raymond, where we have a true technical niche like building envelope, waterproofing, roofing, we can come in and do the condition assessment with a lot of technical detail and make sure you've got experts actually deploying into the field. And small businesses are also good for these types of contracts because, generally speaking, they're lower risk. We're not talking about design and all of the potential legal liabilities of design and construction. You're talking about assessments, and therefore you can really leverage small business to meet a lot of small business contracting goals. All good things. But there is a catch to using small business. So large business is great. They typically are doing a tremendous amount of volume of this work, which is perfectly fine. They typically are able to have the resources, not only personnel, but also funding to not only do the work, but also build the processes, the IT platforms necessary just to collect the data. And if they're not building their own internal software, they are contracting with the federal government in order to get direct access to Builder, which is a known process. That's all well and good, but they've got it all ironed out. Small businesses may or may not actually be doing a tremendous amount of this work comparatively, and therefore are at a little bit of a disadvantage. And so it's not that a small business couldn't do any of the things that a big business is doing. It's just that they are more unlikely to be in the position where they can plan it out with enough time to actually put everything in place, bring the software online, purchase devices, or have people trained on devices that may already exist. And it can be challenging, to say the least. And so you've got a little bit of a catch-22. It's great that small business gets to do this work, but they're not necessarily as efficient, therefore maybe not as profitable as you would find with a large business. And to be perfectly honest, that's where Raymond found itself. And would love to say that we were perfectly efficient and we can do this work in our sleep. We can do the work. The problem is actually on the reporting side, which we're going to get into. So with a lack of this IT infrastructure, what ends up happening is for a small business like Raymond, and I'm going to start speaking very specific to Raymond. Raymond does a lot of roof condition assessments, so we'll use that as a simple example throughout the rest of this presentation. Is our contracts for this type of work is not that they're wrong, it's that it really is, we're going to do all the data collection, we're going to do all the reporting, but because we're not set up in a lot of cases to actually migrate all of that data right into the Builder platform, we're typically providing reports like you're seeing here on this slide. And so they're straightforward, they're easy to use for the most part. But what we have found historically is if you've got a team of people going out, it can be very, very challenging for us to collect all of our data in the field, organize it when we get back, and then efficiently put together a report, because we're doing almost everything manually historically, and there are absolutely exceptions. There are ways to get around that, and that's kind of where this presentation comes. Is we're not trying to build software that will replace the Builder program. We're trying to build software that would allow a small business to efficiently meet all the contract requirements and not have to lose margin, not have to lose time and resources and things like that, but just do the normal contract work kind of like a large business would, and do it as efficiently as possible. So let me give you a real example. Actually, one of my first projects when I joined Raymond full-time is the Defense Supply Center up in Columbus, Ohio, DSCC. And so what we were on task for at Raymond was actually to do about, give or take, a little bit more than 2 million square feet across 11 buildings, relatively straightforward roofs that needed to be assessed, nothing crazy. We weren't specifically using Builder. Actually, this would all go into the roofer submodule within Builder. Provide some parametric cost estimating, do a final presentation on recommendations, repairs, whatever it may be, to the actual DSCC personnel into the Corps of Engineers, and then also transfer all the digital data that we collected, which is another challenge. So what we actually did was we were on site for give or take about a week, and that was 4 inspectors. I was actually part of this project, and we also brought 1 safety observer to make sure that we were meeting all the EM3 385-1 requirements, and it was all completed on time. But when you're in the field doing it manually, you see the inefficiencies right away, and so me being able to go on that project and see this with more innovation, skill set, mindset, started to see the inefficiencies of using pen, paper, or even when we did use digital devices, the problems that was created in the field, let alone what happened afterwards. And so we did our field work in about a week. That went pretty well, even with very adverse weather conditions for the first 2.5 days. We were still able to get all the work done. The problem we then ran into is 4 people that actually were coming from different offices. We had to compile all of that data into one master data set. That took forever. That was almost a Herculean effort just from that, because each one of us was doing it differently. We didn't really realize that at the time, but we had 4 different devices to collect the digital data, 4 different sets of notes. Everything was separate, unfortunately. And once we completed all of that, building out the actual forms, the final reporting forms, drawing the roof areas and coding everything, that was more challenging than I think it should have been, to be perfectly honest. And then the final requirement of actually putting together a digital data set. What I was kind of surprised about is we at the time, especially, were not able to say this photo corresponds to this marked defect or this issue on the roof system. We really didn't have a way to do it. So I was a little disappointed. We met all the contract requirements, but I was a little disappointed that we couldn't deliver a better product, more organized product, efficient, timely, all of the above. So that'd be more useful. And so some of the lessons learned fed into what we were going to build for a long-term solution, which is now live today. And so some of the outcomes realized just how inefficient we were in the field doing this type of work. That's even worse when you get back to the office. What is a relatively simple exercise in reporting and data collection, it took tens and tens of hours. It took me probably working as an EVP a week and a half full time, probably, just to pull together all the data and get all the reporting done, which is, again, these are relatively simple forms, but it took that much effort in order to actually do this. It really crushes the amount of time that you have available for everything else. And it's, again, a simple exercise. And so what it really all led down to was we need to be more efficient in the field. GIS data collection would make a tremendous amount of sense, because we can mark everything, tag everything, put it all together, have a standardized process, which also would match to the forms incredibly well. Also, having an entire platform would allow for standardization. And if we build the right solution, we actually have the advantage of not only standardizing, but being able to work on the same project simultaneously without any issues. And so looking at software that would complement the builder process by being the front end for a small business that could be commercially available, off the shelf tech that could be deployed in moments. That was what we wanted, and that's what we wanted to strive towards. So what we did is, when you start with rapid prototyping, you got to figure out what you want to build first. And so just a high level summary of our objectives. We structured it such that let's build objectives that meet the core problem, will make our lives easier, and are also very achievable from a software development perspective. So again, keeping with roof specific analogies, we want to have an ontology that matches, in our vernacular, roof defects and roof systems, those types of building systems, an ontology and database schema that would make sense to us, also be very easy to convert between our platform and the Builder platform if there was a requirement to actually transfer that data directly out of our system directly into Builder. We wanted it to be mobile enabled. In our research, we really realized that all of our employees are almost entirely on iOS or iPadOS, GIS-centric, simple, clean UI, UX, or user interface, user experience. And then it's got a mirror builder, basically. It's got to auto-generate a lot of our reporting requirements, be ready day one with no middleman, and then allow you to have project permissions where we could assign additional users to a specific project instantaneously and or create a project on the fly and say, if I've got to show up in 30 minutes at the site, I can build my project on my phone and just be ready to roll. And so what we've actually built is what we call our Veritas platform, veritasapp.com. It's cloud hosted. We're actually on iOS, on both iPad and iPhone at this point. We built in a secure cloud environment. We're using Google Firebase, if you're familiar. Multi-user GIS data collection. We actually also allow for marking up and collecting information on PDF roof plans, on-demand report generation, auto-generates our photo logs, so we can actually tie everything together in a much more seamless product. Summary tables, all the key information and recommendations. Unlimited use, so you don't have to worry about some of the other platforms that kind of want to charge you based on square footage required. And it's 100% ready to go day one, commercially available off the shelf. And we've been able to train all of our personnel in using this platform too. So we went with a very clean interface. And so what you're actually seeing here is when we mark defects and leaks, we kept it at the simplest version of the problem. Like what are you looking at? What's wrong with it? And then how bad is it? Take photos all in a single record, whether it's a defect or a leak. And all that data, because it's incredibly standardized, can, even though we keep it very simple for our technicians to digest and use, we also have it where inside of the reporting process, we can easily say that, yeah, we marked it as this, but it really means this in DoD, Corps of Engineer vernacular, or in Builder vernacular, very easy. And we can build out a site building roof plan hierarchy, so that if I'm doing the DSCC in the future, I can not only collect the data digitally, but I can build it as complex as I want for every building, every roof area that could be assigned per building. We can draw all of our roof areas. We can do CapEx inside of this. It works very, very, very well. We can draw inside of it, and we can do relatively simple condition indices, remaining service life, square feet, all of it inside of a single interface that, again, has been very easy for our personnel to understand and use. And also when we're working on non-DoD projects, also deploy and be a long-term data storage and data collection and data storage type of solution. And so what we've been able to do also, when we used to have to fill out the roof reforms, for example, what I can now do is generate the left-handed graphic and actually say, that's our roof area. I've coded it, whatever condition index, in this case, it's very, very poor, but I can mark all of my defects, and then that auto-generates our photo log, so that we can also provide that as a supplement and say, when it says defect 1 in the photo log, it corresponds to the exact mapped location. So I know I'm now providing a tremendous amount of additional detail for whoever is putting our reporting directly into the Roofer and Builder program, which is more helpful for them as well. And so it has worked incredibly well for us. It complements, it does not replace anything related to the Builder program. It's something that can be deployed on devices that we either can buy very, very affordably, or our personnel may already have, like an iPhone, for example. Can work across devices and across users. It's better data delivery. So if we want to just send all the photos, we just download a zip from our cloud and we can submit that directly to Corps of Engineers for our contract deliverable. We've easily done over 10 million square feet through this platform across federal, state, local, K-12, and higher ed and commercial customers at this point in time. And what we've also found is where it might have taken us 60 hours originally, we can reduce that by a solid 80% in our report writing, which helps us deliver on time, have additional bandwidth from our personnel. And generally, we're taking out the mundane requirements So it's a very popular, very efficient platform inside of Raymond. We've made it easy to use, and we can perform it on all of our projects. So a problem that we saw with DoD for us actually working those contracts, now we can apply to all of our customers, and it's been very, very popular with us. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about our experience innovating and meeting some of the challenges that we would see on a DoD contract, taking a rapid prototype approach, and then be able to build out a solution that is now scalable, that actually works across more than just the DoD landscape and complements what we're being asked to do, required to do, and what we want to do efficiently. So thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.